me if this sounds familiar. You are on Instagram for a long time, and then you start realizing that some of the stress that you're experiencing may be due to social media. You decide to take a social media break. And for the first day or two, it's great. You take the break. It's amazing. I mean, you have a little bit of the urge to go back to social media, but overall, it's really good. You're able to enjoy being outside. You're able to enjoy nature and spending time with more real life friends, which is amazing. However, after a while, you start thinking, oh my goodness, what are people doing? What are people saying on Instagram? And you start also realizing that some of your business stuff may be on Instagram, or you need to connect or contact somebody who is on Instagram, and there's no other way to connect with them, especially if you're a writer and you have most of your writer friends on Instagram. What are you supposed to do? So you get back on Instagram, and somehow in the first 10 minutes, you find yourself scrolling again. And this wasn't the intended idea or what was supposed to happen, but somehow it has. Somehow it has happened again. You're caught in the treadmill of the Instagram game. Doesn't that sound a little bit familiar? Well, friend, don't worry, because I know exactly what that feels like. I've played that Instagram game where I get off Instagram and pop back on again and again and again, only to feel burnt out and leave and then come back again for another try at the game. It's exhausting and it's tiring and it is genuinely not fun. There's moments where you feel amazing, but then there are some lows where you say, oh my goodness, I posted something that just didn't work. And then you get an enormous low. Or you feel stressed because you have so much success with your platform, but you don't have any peace or any time to enjoy the success that you're actually garnering with your social media following. So how do we actually have a slow life that we can actually enjoy, that we can actually find the best parts of, that we can enjoy to the fullest, and then we can actually live normal lives and be able to put our phones back in our purses or in our pockets without thinking of how many likes we got, how many comments we'll have to respond to, how many DMs have just come into our inbox. All of that disappears. Wouldn't that be an amazing reality? Well, friends, I am here to tell you that I've invited an amazing guest to talk with us just about this. In fact, she's kind of an expert on social media, but also on slow living and how to be able to avoid burnout and make space for quiet so that you can actually enjoy living the way you were supposed to be, the way that you were created to be living. I am so excited because this talk is going to be so beneficial. I've listened to it and it is so good. I absolutely cannot wait for you to listen to this. Hi there, listener. My name is Shida Rodriguez, and I am here to help you find life-changing books and life-changing stories. If this is your first time here, please consider this your warm welcome to the podcast. I hope that this can become a home away from home where you feel like we're sitting across from each other at a coffee table or something like that, and you're just eavesdropping on my conversations with other writers, but also that you feel like you're part of the conversation too. And I also hope that you feel like you are part of a writing group and a writing community where you can talk all things bookish and writerly. Before we start, be sure to click the links in the description below, or if you're listening to the podcast, to the show notes in the description, show notes below. I don't know. I'm not sure how it's called, where you can pre-order my anthology, which features 11 beautiful short stories that are perfect for fall. I promise you they will give you the most beautiful fallish feelings. And out of these 11, one of these stories is actually mine. And in fact, right now we have it open for pre-order. So if you want to get your exclusive pre-order goodies, such as an exclusive audiobook from me reading my short story, 2 exclusive Spotify playlists, a special recipe that is only going to be included in the pre-order package. You don't want to miss this. And there is so much more because each one of the authors has special goodies for their story. And I am so excited for you to check it out. I know that you will absolutely love this collection, and I can't wait for you to be able to read it. Also, follow me on Instagram if you like more daily life of a writer sort of content. I post all the behind the scenes things of writing and creating this podcast and filming and reading life, all things writerly and bookish. I post on my Instagram page, so definitely follow me there. And if you like to listen to podcasts or you would like to listen to this podcast, you can definitely head over to Spotify or Apple Podcasts or any of your favorite podcast platforms where you can listen to this on the go. If you're watching here and enjoying this, please subscribe, like, and ring the bell so that you never miss a single episode. Okay, let's jump in now that we've gotten all that stuff out of the way. Honestly, I am so excited because this is the first time that I have a return guest. Yes, you heard me. This is a guest that you have actually heard before. If you've been listening to Her Reading Life podcast for any length of time, then you probably know Naomi Sowell. Last time she was here, she was sharing some amazing social media tips for artists, for writers, for anybody who uses Instagram as a social media. She has some amazing tips and tricks that you can actually listen to by heading over to the link in the description below or in the show notes if you're listening on Spotify. And you can catch up on that episode because, well, actually 2 episodes, because she has some wonderful tips on how to market yourself and how to be able to sustainably maintain your brand and be authentic online and find the joy in social media marketing. It was such a joy to be able to work with her and to learn so much from her amazing experience. And now I am so absolutely thrilled to bring her back for a second 2-part episode, I think, because I was going to say a second episode, but she's already been here for 2 episodes, a 2-part episode. So this is for her second 2-part episode where she is actually going to share on something we teased last time that she was here. And that is on slow living, or like embracing a slower lifestyle. Because in today's fast-paced world, it is so easy to get lost in that fast breakneck pace that everybody seems to endorse. You know, get more done so that you can stuff more into your schedule. Well, that's the thing. Life isn't about stuffing more work into your schedule. It's about being able to do things efficiently and prioritizing so that you can enjoy life. Isn't that kind of the point? That's the reason why we wanted to do what we wanted to do. So today we are going to be talking all about how to maintain a sustainable lifestyle, but also how to kind of deal with the more emotional side of social media, the ups, downs, and distractions and busyness. Is busyness actually a good thing? Is it something that we use sometimes to distract ourselves? Burnout is so real. So if you are facing burnout, you definitely will love to listen to this episode because it is going to be such a balm for your soul. So this episode is going to be so beneficial if you have faced any of these things and want a little bit more insight and for someone to kind of guide you through that. I am so excited for you to be able to enjoy this episode coming up now. Hey everyone, welcome back to Her Reading Life podcast. I am so excited to have you guys here. And today I actually have a previous guest with me in the studio, which is so fun because this is the first time that I've ever had anybody back again, which is like twice as cool because I get to have a friend back in here. And if you listened to my episodes on social media and marketing as a writer, you will remember the incredible Naomi Sowell. She's back here today to share more on marketing. In fact, I am so excited for today's episode because it's going to be about how to embrace a slower lifestyle and how to take back your time in marketing, which is something new that you've really been implementing, and some things that you're really excited about and that you've been sharing so much on your socials. And I'm so excited to hear more about this. Welcome, Naomi. Thanks so much for coming back on.
Thank you so much for having me. I didn't know that I'd be the first recall. No, that's not the right word. Like revisit back on whatever it's called. Recall is like when something bad happens. So don't want to say that. But that's so cool.
Yeah, honestly, I am so excited because I know that we promised our listeners that we were gonna have like one on more like having a slower lifestyle and embracing a slower lifestyle and just finding joy in the process as well and having time for yourself as opposed to just going through the motions or just trying to get as much content out there. So I'm so excited that we were able to, revisit this topic again. For those of our listeners who don't know or haven't listened to our previous episode, what's your story? What inspired you to start writing and pursuing marketing?
Yeah, so we'll tackle the writing first. That's a bit longer of a story, but I'll try to keep it short. So I've always been a huge lover of stories from when I was little, really enjoyed reading, listening to stories. My mom especially really cultivated that in me because she's was just such a great storyteller, was excellent at reading stories to us as kids and things like that. So from a young age, huge lover of stories. I would like make up stories, even wrote a couple that are my mom's keepsakes. Never ever going to show them to anyone else. Have a few of those. And then I started writing seriously when I was 15 years old. I remember that summer going on one of our mission trips to Serbia, and I was the previous year I had talked to a really close friend, and she had mentioned that, you know, over the year we were like talking, getting to know each other better, and she mentioned that there's not a lot of like Christian literature, and all the books I was talking about sounded so interesting, but they didn't have them. So I was like, I got you, girl. So I like brought a entire box of books just for her, some of my favorites. And she was like so ecstatic, so excited, and I just felt so much joy watching her open the box and telling her about the stories. And when I got back, and as like our music was taking off, we were learning about songwriting and storytelling that way. And I just remember the songwriting thing and like not really being happy with condensing a story to 3 minutes, plus just the like knowledge of like, wow, in America we have access to all these books and all these stories, kind of like the
Mhm.
Bible and just good literature. And but overseas, they get all the popular stuff, but they don't get like the hidden gems that we can find here in America so easily. So I wanted to write for that. That was my beginning motivation for that when I started writing seriously. So I self-published a short story and a novella trilogy. Then I joined the Author Conservatory in 2021, wrote my first full-length novel under them. I'm currently writing a short story and about to start a new novel. So yeah, lots of fun things on the writing side. Most recently, because I think we talked about just like not only has like my marketing and business kind of honed in and shifted, but my writing has too. And so originally, as I was like getting into the conservatory and really figuring out like what my passion is in writing, what my unique voice was, originally I thought my like theme that would kind of flow throughout whatever I wrote, what would be spreading awareness about human trafficking, which was amazing. But that's a big thing to tackle, especially in writing. And just with all the family stuff that was happening on and going on, and then with my dad passing away 2 days before Thanksgiving last year, I've really been acquainted with grief lately, which has also brought me closer to Jesus because, like the Bible talks about, he's well acquainted with our grief. He's a man of sorrows.
Yep.
So, like, just that whole like journey and different perspective on life lately. Um, and I've been talking to people, and it's just something that's not talked a lot about in general in the
Mhm.
church and in stories. And so recently I've been kind of shifting my writing voice and experimenting with Christian suspense and thriller stories tackling grief. And there's like grief is like there's so many different types of grief and complex grief and things like that. So but that's kind of been the new theme that I've been exploring, and so far it's gotten a really good response. So I'm super excited with this new novel to like take it deeper and actually like write something in that vein. So that's the writing side. um then marketing, I've been in marketing 8 years now, which is crazy. I feel so old. But granted, I started when I was 16. So I'm not that old, but when I say 8 years, that's a pretty good career, marketing wise. That's about a midterm, I guess, for a lot of people. But I started for the band my siblings and I did for 13 years. And I don't know what got in my head that I wanted to do it, but I just started taking over our social media and emails and website. And I learned from Rick Barker, who was Taylor Swift's first manager. And after he like got tired of Sony and the music industry, he started teaching indie musicians how to market on social media. So I learned under him. And then of course the Author Conservatory covers business and marketing. So yeah, just a lot of life experience. Never went to college for it. Thank goodness. And and then so under the author, like I started doing a like actual business with marketing just after COVID, learned a ton during COVID, and people like started taking notice. And I was like, oh, this would be a good business idea. That's how my brain works. So I was like, okay. And it wasn't really until last year that I got to like actually put consistent time into it. And so last year I actually started building it, ended up working for several different people in like 3 or 4 different niches and industries. And it was all great, but very tiring and exhausting. And I was, post COVID, I was working on that slower pace of life that we're going to dive into more later, and building
Mhm.
good habits and stuff. Like COVID was a good wake up call for me. And so I was like trying to build this business, going completely against the grain, completely against the norm of like most like modern business and modern success, what that looks like. So I was going against all of that, but also still kind of burning out, just being exhausted. And then grief, of course, adds on top of that. So this year, like with my writing, kind of honing and shifting that, I've kind of cut down on clients to like 3 or 4 that like are really, really life giving to serve. And I'm learning a ton working for them, and they're good career choices for my writing. And then I'm moving back to coaching. So coaching was actually my original business idea under author, but I just didn't have the experience. And so they were like, well, you have the experience to actually do the work, not so much teach it. And I was like, you're right. So that's why I started like managing social media and emails and things like that. But now I have the experience to coach, especially with what we'll be talking about. It's a very niche type of marketing coaching that
Right.
I don't see anything else out there like it, and it's much needed in the marketing world.
Yes.
So I now that I've like cut back on business, really slowed down and giving myself space to grieve and heal and get creative again with my writing, I'm, focusing on the coaching again. And so I'm currently running a beta test, like building it, haven't started it yet, but like I'm working on finding just a few beta testers to run it with. And then also, this is a new development. Since the last time we talked, I'm going to be teaching a mini course in a Facebook group. So, like, condensing everything into like a month of like Facebook live calls with this group. So yeah, just a bunch of exciting things there with marketing coaching. So those are two very cliff notes answers, but yeah.
I love it. That's amazing. And you did an amazing job like condensing it because that's a lot. I know there's
Thank
so
you.
much to it. Yeah. And honestly, that's why I'm so excited about the way that you're teaching marketing because it is really hard to find people that talk about not just, pleasing an algorithm, which is essentially a robot. And I was actually talking about this on my stories the other day that we didn't come onto this platform because we wanted to make a robot happy so that it would
Right.
promote our content. We came on because we're creators. We want to be creative. We want to share the beautiful things we have to share to the world, but it can get so exhausting in the grind of it. And that's what I love about your approach that it's about taking your time back because your time is precious and
Yes.
there's a better way to do it. And most of us honestly don't know how to do it.
Right. Exactly. Yeah. And a lot of people, unfortunately, these marketing gurus and experts, like they're great people, but they're unintentionally pushing really toxic thinking. Any other industry than business and marketing, people would be like, you need therapy. So, and it's all unintentional, which is why I came up with the term conscious marketing, because you're choosing to be aware of how you're thinking about marketing and how you're going about the marketing. So it's much more like strategy and just really building a solid foundation. And what's so funny is I've seen this like 3 different people that I follow had some type of like meeting with a meta person. And so they listed out, these top tips that this meta advisor
Mhm.
gave them. And I'm reading them and I'm going, it's so much simpler than a lot of people are putting out there. It's like they're just throwing spaghetti at the wall or whatever, but
Yeah.
it's really quite simple. And it's all about consistency and sustainability. Well, really, consistency is key. Like you hear that all the time, but not a lot of people talk
Mhm.
about the sustainable part. Because if you can't
Yeah,
sustain the consistency, you're not going to be consistent. You just can't.
exactly.
So yeah,
Yeah, I love that, and it's so true. Like, we need to have some kind of sustainability in order to have the consistency. So I would even say, like, try to be sustainable before you can even be consistent. Because if you can't be
right,
sustainable, you're not going to be consistent. Like, you can try,
exactly.
but there are gonna be days that you're literally not gonna be able to come out of bed, or you will have 0 motivation, and it will literally make you ill to think of doing a reel or something like that.
Yes, exactly. Yeah, it's crazy because like we talked about, like at the time of this recording, like I had a migraine yesterday, and yesterday is usually my content creation day. But I was able to have the freedom to tell myself, you know what, you have enough content that you could pull out of the woodworks to make this week work. Like you don't have to film and feel crappy about it, you know? So yeah, it's
Exactly.
just which is very freeing.
Exactly, yes, and that's the that's not the hilarious thing, but, like, kind of the ironic thing. We get into, like, content creation so that we have more time, so that we have more flexibility, but sometimes we create our own monsters, and we end up having less flexibility or less time or less
Yeah,
peace of mind because we're attacking ourselves and we're literally self-sabotaging.
yeah, yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I'm so curious. How did you realize what led you to realize that you could have the same end result with a slower, healthier pace of life?
Yeah, so I the you know how they say like changing your life is overrated, and I get that. Like we use that phrase a
Yeah.
lot, and did it really change your life? You know, that's just like the skeptic in me. But there was a book that did actually literally change my life and probably saved it too. Because I was not in a good place and headed in just a really bad pattern of like unhealthy habits and just mindset toward marketing. And it was The Ruthless Elimination of Hurry by John Mark Comer. And he has a couple other books out now that I have not read yet. They are on my list, but I'm still going to recommend them because it's John Mark Comer. Like he's one of my favorite Bible teachers. And I read his book in like late like I started in like December of 2021 and like finished it in the spring of 2022. But I remember reading the prologue in December of 2021 and literally going, ouch. This guy literally described my life, and I knew immediately like this book was going to be like just change the trajectory of my mindset, and it did. And so just through reading that book, and again, a lot of what I learned was not from the marketing industry because there's not really a lot out there. Like there's a lot of mindset stuff and things like that, but it doesn't get to the root of the problem. Like
Mhm.
more productivity isn't going to fix it. Having the right mindset isn't going to fix it. Like you have to completely rewire your brain almost with how you view your pace of life.
Mhm.
And for me as a Christian, that starts on a spiritual level. If you're not a Christian, that might look a little different for you, but for me and for us as Christians, it always starts at a spiritual level because that's where
Yeah.
like our life literally flows from our faith. And so reading that book really made me like stop and rethink my pace of life and just be more aware of how I was living. And I started just like making little changes at a time because my really bad tendency is to like to try and change everything at once. And it never works out because you're still burning yourself out just trying to do better things. Um, so I tried to take it one thing at a time and just made some changes and stuck to it. And it really helped a ton, especially when what ended up being a very, very stressful time of my life, from
Okay.
2022 up until really present day. Like it hasn't really stopped. But I'm in a happier and healthier place than I was before COVID, before all this, like, like stuff has happened
Mhm.
in my family and my life because I've slowed down, and it's also enhanced my creativity too as a writer. So it really has just like seeped into all areas of my life of yeah, just going at a slower pace. Um, and yeah, just really fighting against the norm that success loves speed. Like that's thrown around so much in the business world, and I hate it with a passion. I always tell people, I'm like,
Yeah.
please don't say that and don't believe that because success may love speed in the world's eyes, but like you as a person, it's going to like kill you basically. You know, stress kills. And so I experienced that. Hopefully that answered the question. I kind of already forgot, but
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. No, that's spot on, honestly. And I feel like we focus so much on quantity nowadays that we forget about the quality. And let's just be honest, people are getting sick of the quantity and they're craving quality at this
yeah,
point. And yeah, I love what you were talking about, like the lies that we believe, because all of it eventually stems down to those lies that we're believing subconsciously, that we think we need to be doing things at a certain pace, we need to be doing things a certain way, we need to be creating we need to be productive to mean something.
yeah, yeah, exactly. That was an innate lie. And one of John Mark Comer's books talks about that too. I think is Live No Lies. I haven't read it yet, but it's about the lies that we believe and how like it all starts in the mind, but also starts
Mhm.
with our body too. Like you need to fix both. Which that's a whole nother topic about like fasting and body stuff and mind stuff and things like that. But in America, we focus on the mind a lot.
Yeah.
And it does matter about like the lies that you're believing because what you think is usually what you end up acting out. And so for me, like what you just said, those lies that we believe about ourselves and being more productive to be meaningful, that was something that I was struggling with, was because when you make your living as a performer and you're already a
Mhm.
performance-based person, you really need to like be aware of those thought processes. And I was aware of them, but not as much as I should have been. So that lie that, okay, I need to do enough to be enough, be more productive, to have a purpose in this world and things like that. That's kind of like leaving God out of the picture because you're putting all the pressure on yourself. So yeah, that
Exactly.
was something that I had to work through, and it takes work. You can't just like change your mindset and be fine. That's why it's like you have to like ruthlessly eliminate hurry. Like that's why
Yeah.
he got that from a Dallas Willard quote, who's also another guy that I need to catch up reading on. But if you've read his books, or I just recommend his books because he was like John Mark Comer's favorite author. But yeah, he got that from a Dallas Willard quote about ruthlessly eliminating hurry because that's one of the devil's weapons against us. It's not just distraction, it's busyness. Those are like his two main things. If he can't distract us, he'll busy us, which is also basically a distraction. So,
Mhm. Exactly. Yeah, I remember I was talking with my mom and we were studying the scene with the temptation, and where Satan was tempting Jesus, and it was insane how all of the temptations that Satan was putting before Jesus, they weren't bad things like per se, like turn a bread into stone. What's wrong with that? Like the guy's hungry.
yeah,
Like, what was it? It was a distraction. All of the things that he was tempted to do were distractions. And we think that temptation is like, oh my goodness, commit a terrible sin, murder somebody. And yes, I get it. It does happen. But it doesn't start there. It starts with that distraction. Even murder, even as Jesus Christ was, he told his disciples, it starts in the heart. It starts with that thought of, oh, I hate this person.
yeah,
And it's a distraction from loving people. It's
yeah,
a distraction from what we were called to do. And sometimes we don't realize that we're like, oh, I was just going to get distracted for a minute. And then, 2 minutes, 5 minutes, an hour passes by. And it's not that it's necessarily a bad thing in and of itself. It may have been that you got distracted with Bible reels, which is great. But at the same time, was that what you were called to do? Is that what you were supposed to do with your time? And I think we don't realize how distraction can be so many times a weapon that the enemy uses against us, and distraction also in life too, where we
yeah,
think we have to be doing this to please somebody, we have to be doing this to please the algorithm or to get more followers. We have to do these things. And we don't realize that if we just follow God's lead and we're just ourselves and we're just authentically bringing ourselves to the table, just serving people, I think that everything kind of fits together really well. Hey, friend, I'm just going to pause here for a second because if you have been listening to all the things that Naomi's been sharing, and I'm guessing that if you've gotten this far, you've been probably nodding to a couple of them too. Well, friend, what if I told you that you could indeed manage your social media stuff with peace, with sustainability, with that amazing feeling of not being afraid that your next post is going to plummet, not being afraid that you're not going to be able to make and answer all those comments in the time that you have, not feeling overwhelmed at night by how many people you haven't responded to. Instead, imagine that you can have peace at night, that you can go around your day with your phone in your purse or in your pocket and you don't even feel the urge to check the likes. Imagine if you could have all that. Imagine if, because you are so at peace, your body even feels so much better. And because your body feels so much better, you are so much happier. And not only that, your business is going so much better. Imagine if you could have all of those things. Well, guess what? You can, because Naomi Sowell is actually creating a new coaching program that she's just opening up for clients. And so if you are interested in working with Naomi, all you have to do is click the link below. And friends, she has a first free consultation. Yep, I said that, free. So if you're interested in learning more about how you can embrace this peaceful lifestyle and make it your own, if you crave that ability to go down a street without checking your phone, without thinking about how your business relies on you and your social media and whether you'll have enough time or feel like you have enough bandwidth to do everything, Naomi is just the person for you and will help you be able to leverage social media in a way that you will love and that you will enjoy. So again, click that link in the description or in the show notes if you are interested in working with Naomi, and I will see you there.
Yeah, I love what you said about distractions on good things. Because and it's an ongoing process. Like in March, it was good things that I was getting distracted with. The first half of the month, I had said yes to too many social things, which is good. Like I haven't been in a safe in-person community like ever. So like I love my church community, love my friend group. But I was saying yes to too many things and still burning myself out.
Right.
Um, so the second half of the month, I had to literally say no to everything except weekend stuff because I was like, I need to fulfill work commitments. And then I was exhausted with work at the end, but by the end of the month, all commitments were met. But still, like, you know, there's a balance.
Exactly. Yeah, totally. Yeah. What were some practical things that you were able to do to be able to reclaim your time and energy and even creativity? Because it does affect your creativity, totally.
Yes,
Uh,
yes.
and what does that look like? What would you recommend for marketers in particular, who want to reclaim their energy and
Yes.
creativity back?
I love this question. Yeah, so for me, as an introvert, but also someone who matches people's energy. So I'm an introverted ambivert, if that makes sense. Like I need my me time to refill my like social battery, but I do love being around safe people. Like it's great. And my extroverted side comes out. But as an introvert, if you are an introvert, you will resonate with this. But reducing noise in my life. Now some people, I get it. If you have ADHD or you need music to focus, like I get that. But for me, I had to really make space for the quiet because I was like listening to podcasts all the time, always like on my like all the jokes about you're getting that like from someone who's sitting on the toilet. It's true. Like I had my phone with me all the time doing work. I was listening to podcasts, or trainings while I was driving or taking a walk. So there was just like constant noise, and it's that information overload. And I discovered this statistic recently. In today and age, we have the lowest information to action ratio ever in history because we have so much information, but we don't do anything with it. That's why people have to focus, like they tell you, focus on aspirational stuff because inspiration just doesn't work anymore. Like people will get inspired and sit on their duff still and do nothing. So that I was like really overloading loading myself with way too much information because I was like, I need to constantly be learning. I need to constantly be growing. But if you're always like feeding yourself, your body and your mind still won't be able to process it. And it's just gonna sit there or you'll forget it. So I had to really be intentional about making more time for quiet. And so that, for me, that looked like adding what's called silence and solitude. That's a John Mark Comer term, but it's like a spiritual discipline. If you look back in church history, like the monks did it, early church leaders did it, not church leaders, but like church people did
Mhm.
it. And it was, what Jesus did um, all the time. You see it in scripture. Jesus went away. He went to a quiet place. He went to the mountain to pray, like whatever, by himself. So that's a really quick picture of what silence and solitude is. Look, you can look it up and find out more. But for me, I had to add a lot more of that in to my quiet time. And also now about 50% of the time if I'm driving, don't listen to anything. I'll talk to myself. I'll pray. I will, whatever happens, happens. It's really just giving your mind and body freedom to process things, which
Yeah.
is really good for you. It's also funny because I'm like talking to myself and I'm like, why am I narrating to myself? But it's just like how I process things. Um, so doing those two things and then really, and this was hard because I love learning. Like I was talking to someone earlier today and she's like, I love how you just are so curious and like that's how you where you are today because you're so curious and just wanted
Mhm.
to learn and grow. And I'm like, yeah, but that can come back to bite you if you don't have a boundary on that. So for me, I had to put a boundary on that and reduce the number of voices that I was listening to, which none of those voices were bad. I mean, some, like I mentioned, a lot of people do unintentionally push some more toxic thinking because it's what everyone else is doing, it's what's
Mhm.
working or whatever. But I had to like reduce the noise and make more space for quiet. And for marketing, that helped a ton because I was able to like actually come up with my own ideas and continue experimenting and figuring out what works for me because everybody's different. And in the long run, kind of going back to that sustainability, like you need to be able to enjoy what you're marketing or what you're creating content wise or what you're writing. Um, so a lot of that. And then creativity wise, not just for marketing, but also for writing, when you reduce the noise, you, you know, not only give your brain time to process, but it does cultivate creativity. Because when you're a creative person, your brain doesn't shut it off. It,
Mhm.
you just hear it better when it's quiet. um, and so I would get the most random ideas any time of the day still,
Mhm.
but it was much more clear and I could catch it because I had reduced the noise. So yeah, just that helped a ton and just gave me space to be more attuned to my creative side. We talked about this, like where I would just sit on the porch and I would be like eating or even just working and some sensory details started to stick out and I would write a paragraph on it or write a post on it, like a inspirational post on it or a lesson post about it. It just made me think of something. And I wouldn't have caught that if I was listening to a podcast or
Mhm.
music or whatever, which those have their place. Like I still love podcasts, I love audiobooks, I love good music. But yeah, that was probably the biggest change that helped. And then a couple more like practical things. We talked about this a lot the last time. The gym
Yeah.
actually is has really helped my creativity because I'm around people more. not just my friends, like that helps a ton, but like just people. Um,
Mhm.
I mean, and it's a different setting than like the coffee shop or a library where people are like quiet and you can watch them without being weird. At the gym, you can also still watch people and it not be weird, but it's a different setting. People are
Yeah.
different in the gym. Um, but it's also like good for you physically and your brain, which promotes creativity.
Mhm.
And it's also a good confidence booster. And confidence it goes right hand in hand in your creativity because if you're not confident in your creativity, you won't share it. So
Exactly.
it's kind of across the board, just been really good for me. Also, just this is super practical, but writing things down. I am a very big list person. My Gmail notes is horrific. There's like hundreds and hundreds of notes in there. It's so bad. Um and I have so many spreadsheets. It's a problem. But I love lists and it helps me process things and sort information. But tangibly actually writing stuff down, it's weird. It just like it releases the stress of trying to remember something
Mhm.
because it's right there in front of you. It's helps you remember because you're like actually writing it down so you're tactically and you're seeing it visually. So I've started the past several weeks writing down my weekly stuff. That way I know what has to be done this week. And then usually by the end of this week, I put too much on my plate and I'm like, okay, that really also didn't need to be done this week, but I know to put
Yeah.
it for next week, you know? So writing my weekly stuff out helps me remember like calls and assignments I'm working on if there's a deadline or something. Some stuff I do a tally for, like the gym. I like to go 5 days a week. That doesn't always happen, but I tally it that way I can keep track. And then
Yeah.
also if I'm reading a book for school or work, I try to read a chapter a day if I'm doing that because it's an assignment usually. So tallying that. So both tally, but also writing stuff out, and then daily writing out my schedule. So like I used to have on my computer a master schedule, which is great, didn't really help me at all
Yeah.
because it was very generalized and I would cross stuff out sometimes. It wasn't a great motivator for me. But like writing out my schedule by day because every day is different for me now. It helps with time increments and it has helped e- significantly reduce wasting time scrolling or whatever or getting lost in research because I have time, things now. I also have alarms set on my phone for like certain times to like take a break. A lot of them again because as a believer, prayer is super important and I've been into missions a
Mhm.
lot lately. So I have some stuff for that, but there's also some like work alarms. Like I call it my midday check-in with Jesus, but that's my lunch break. Um and then also I just created one for the end of the day. Like okay, 8:30 cuz I try to be in bed at the latest by 9:30. 9 o'clock is sweet. That's my sweet spot. But bed latest 9:30, which is still early for some people. But I have an alarm. I just set an alarm today for 8:30 to actually reflect because that's a big thing for productivity is like reflecting back on your day. And I haven't
Mhm.
made space for that consistently. So setting an alarm on my phone will help with that. So yeah, things like that, writing out my schedule and then I can cross it off and it's helped a ton with like remembering what I'm supposed to be doing in a day and staying on track and things like that, which is like so simple. That's like basic productivity skill, but I just never put it into practice. So those are like I think there was like 3 or 4 practical tip things.
Yeah, that was great. Thank you. Yeah, it's so beautiful. I honestly think that was my favorite, the quietude thing, because it's so true. We live in
Yes.
such a noisy world. And I'm not talking necessarily about the noise, but I'm saying there's just so much stuff. There's an
Yeah.
overwhelming amount of everything. Absolutely everything. It's
Yes.
insane. And just having that time to be quiet and reflect or just hear our own thoughts because I feel like they can sometimes even get drowned out by um,
Yes.
social media or TV, movies, podcasts, everything, you name it. It's just so
Yeah.
much that we're surrounded by. Oh my goodness, friends. I hope that you enjoyed that as much as I did because it was such an amazing, delightful experience to be able to listen to Naomi share all these wonderful insights of the things that she's been able to learn the hard way, but that she's sharing with us so that we don't have to go through what she had to go through, all that stress with social media. It was just such a joy to chat with her. She always has so many beautiful insights. And I love how she was talking about how less is more sometimes. It's not as complicated as we think it is. And in today's social media obsessed world, we're so tempted to think more is more. We've got to show more of our life. We've got to show more of this, of that. We've got to present ourselves as perfect. We have to present an idea, an image of our life that doesn't exist. Well, that's a lie. And it's only going to lead to burnout. So friends, hopefully you were able to find peace and joy and so much encouragement in today's episode. If you enjoyed this, please leave a review on Spotify or Apple Podcasts, or leave a comment below, because I absolutely love hearing your thoughts on these episodes. Let me know if there is something else that you would love to see on the podcast. And until next time, friends, continue to live, give, and repeat. And I'll see you next time.